This is home. Twin States News starts right now.
Tonight, women in Meridian and across the world are marking International Women's Day. It's a day to celebrate women and their many achievements. Twin States News' Jacob Isrobi speaks with students at Meridian Community College about what this day means to them.
It's International Women's Day, a day for all women to be celebrated. Meridian Community College students Cameron Sammons and LaFera Holt tell us why they feel today is important for women.
Gain more rights throughout the years, and it's important to maintain that still today. We still have to fight today, even though we have more rights today than we ever have.
We're the caregivers. Everything starts at home, and at home we're the caregivers and keep everything stable and going.
They also share their thoughts on being women in this country.
I don't look at myself any different than, per se, a man, because I can go to school, I can get an education, and I can receive a job.
We kind of have like our own identity now. We're not standing behind men anymore. We can get the same education, same job. So I think it's changed, but changed for the better.
LaFera Holt tells us her message to all her fellow women.
Just things are changing, and they're changing for the better for us.
In Meridian, Jacob Isrobi, Twin States News.
Meridian police are asking for your help tonight. A young woman found dead in a vacant warehouse, and after 41 years, an arrest still hasn't been made. It's tonight's Cold Case Files.
On July 19, 1982, officers responded to 2620 A Street to a report of human remains found inside a vacant warehouse that was being torn down. Upon arrival, officers discovered a badly decomposed body covered in plastic with ladies' clothing nearby. It was later revealed that the body was that of 19-year-old Beverly Ann Parnell, who had been reported missing by her family on June 6, 1982, over a month earlier. It's reported that she left her residence in Mount View Village on foot around 10:30 p.m. on June 5th, going to a local nightclub with a female companion. Her companion left the club at roughly 3 a.m. Witnesses said Ms. Parnell did not leave until about 4 a.m. on the morning of June 6th. The investigation suggested she frequented the club often and usually traveled to and from the location on foot via the 26th Avenue underpass, which is near the vacant warehouse. It's believed Ms. Parnell was sexually assaulted, and the autopsy revealed that she suffered compression fractures of the skull that were caused by blows with a blunt object.
A cold case is a crime that has not yet been fully resolved, but remains open pending the discovery of new evidence or new witness testimony. We are asking you, the public, to provide that new evidence or testimony in this cold case by calling the numbers on your screen.
2 Americans are dead and 2 others were kidnapped. Now lawmakers on both sides of the southern border want answers. Bill Milligan has more from Brownsville, Texas.
2 Americans kidnapped in Mexico are now back in the U.S., recovering in a hospital here in Texas. The FBI is working with Mexican authorities to recover the bodies of 2 others who were killed in the cartel attack. And we're learning more about their ordeal. One of the 2 surviving Americans was shot in the leg. They were moved around to multiple locations, including a health clinic, to throw authorities off the trail before eventually being found in a wooden shack.
It appears it was all a confusion. There was no ransom. We don't have an exact given number of suspects. These will be determined by the investigation.
The man guarding that shack is now behind bars, and Mexican authorities say more arrests will be coming. But with the power of cartels growing on both sides of the border, it's not clear if those ultimately responsible for the murders and kidnappings will face justice.
They have too much influence in Mexico. Now they're starting to have influence in the United States. And these people that were down there, they paid the price.
Meanwhile, Attorney General Merrick Garland says he is outraged by the incident and claims there will be consequences, with pressure building on the administration to take a harder stance against the cartels.
This event's really going to start changing how things happen with the cartels. 21 state attorney generals have already requested that they be labeled a terrorist organization.
And some lawmakers on Capitol Hill are now calling for the United States to use military force against these Mexican cartels. Reporting in Brownsville, Texas, Bill Milligan, Fox News.
House lawmakers holding a hearing today focusing on the origins of the coronavirus pandemic. They're trying to get to the bottom of whether the virus came from a lab leak in Wuhan, China. Lauren Blanchard has more from Washington.
Discovering the origins is vital. It matters for the future of the world.
3 years after the coronavirus pandemic upended life on Earth, we still don't know exactly how it started. On Wednesday, a House subcommittee held a hearing to get some answers.
The truth is, we don't know the origins of COVID-19 yet for sure. We don't have a smoking gun.
We must allow our scientists and intelligence communities to gather evidence without politicization.
Lawmakers want to know whether the deadly virus originated in an animal or a lab in Wuhan, China.
And I still believe today that it indicates that COVID-19 more likely was the result of an accidental lab leak than a result of a natural spillover event.
Government agencies remain divided on the issue. Recently, the FBI reiterated its position that the virus most likely came as a result of a leak from a lab. The Energy Department holds the same view, but with low confidence. Experts say more cooperation from the Chinese government is needed.
The Chinese government has done everything in its power to prevent the type of investigation into the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic that is 3 years overdue and still urgently required.
For its part, China has dismissed the lab leak theory.
We urge the U.S. to respect science and facts, stop politicizing origin tracing.
The House is set to vote on a bill this Friday to declassify intelligence findings on the origins of COVID. In Washington, Lauren Blanchard, Fox News.
Chinese-owned TikTok is a leading social media app in the U.S., but it won't be for long if leaders in Congress get their way. Aisha Hasni has more from Capitol Hill.
Congress appears to be inching closer to new regulations or even an outright ban on TikTok. On Wednesday, officials telling the Senate Intelligence Committee the social media app poses a major risk to America's national security. They say it's likely being used right now by the Chinese government to spy on millions of Americans, stealing data while laying the groundwork for possible infiltration of personal computers and phones.
If you look at what the Chinese are trying to steal, that's where it is. So we need to be working more and more closely with the business community to try to build resilience.
The hearing comes a day after a bipartisan group of senators introduced legislation that would give the administration new powers to ban TikTok. The White House says it backs that legislation and it's urging both parties to get it to the president's desk as soon as possible. Republicans say there's plenty of support on their side of the aisle.
It's not about some grown man in the middle of the day putting up videos. It's probably one of the most valuable surveillance tools on the planet.
Meanwhile, China is pushing back, denying it's using TikTok to spy on the U.S. and accusing the administration of politicizing economic issues under the guise of national security.
Such a practice violates the principle of fair competition and seriously damages the international economic and trade order.
And lawmakers say they're looking at banning other potentially harmful apps from countries like Russia and North Korea. On Capitol Hill, I'm Aisha Hasni, Fox News.
SoFi Bank is suing the Biden administration to end the pause on federal student loan payments. In a lawsuit filed Friday, SoFi Bank National Association asked a federal judge to overturn President Joe Biden's latest extension of the payment pause, which has been in effect for nearly 3 years. The bank says it lost at least $6 million in profits due to borrowers having little incentive to refinance while payments and interest remain on hold. SoFi said the stoppage could lead to a total of $30 million in losses if it continues through August. President Biden's student loan debt relief plan is also being challenged in the Supreme Court. The Labor Department's update on the January job market is out with mixed readings. Openings declined in January, but the job market remained tight. The Labor Department's job openings and labor turnover survey found 10.8 million job openings. That is down from the revised December number of 11.2 million. Though that is still a strong reading, there were 7 million openings in February of 2020. January layoffs increased to 1.7 million, up 20% from a year earlier, but still below pre-pandemic levels. Northern California is still digging out from back-to-back storms, and now the region is bracing for more severe weather. Jeff Paul has more.
If the snow comes back in, we'll just keep on plowing.
People across Northern California are scrambling to remove snow and debris from roads ahead of yet another storm. Millions of residents face flood watches as the system threatens to bring torrential rain and mountain snow to the region on Thursday. In San Francisco, People lined up to grab essential items and fill sandbags.
Because they're predicting atmospheric river again, and we had damage from the last ones. And yesterday's hail, that's enough.
Forecasters warn California's mountain communities could be hit the hardest. Back-to-back snowstorms have weighed down or collapsed roofs, and local officials fear additional precipitation could cause even more damage.
When you get a wet snow like we see water, it's a little over 8 pounds a gallon. So the wetter the snow, the heavier it is, and it just compounds the weight, the additional weight that's being put on these structures.
Further south in San Bernardino County, some residents are finally leaving their homes after storms left them snowbound for more than a week. Volunteers continue to bring food, water, and medicine to those running low.
We had about a 6-foot berm that was about 6 feet high to the street where they plowed, and then my truck was in there and we had to dig for 2 days just to get it out.
Due to these back-to-back storms, officials say more than 15% of the state is no longer under any type of drought. In Los Angeles, Jeff Paul, Fox News.
Your complete forecast is next. Plus this.
Security and health checks could become more efficient thanks to a super-smelling robot trained by bugs. I'm Marianne Rafferty. Details coming up.